Get started. So morning everyone, thank you so much for joining us for this online session all about Microsoft 365 and doing more with SharePoint and Teams. Just wanted to cover a few things before we start off. So the session is being recorded just so that you're aware. So we will be sending out a copy of the recording at the end of the session. So if there's any colleagues that were unable to join or you'd like to catch up later on, you can do. You'll notice as well that you are on mute at the moment. So if you have any questions, please do use the chat function, and we have one of our team members, Sammy, on hand to answer any questions that you might have. We will also be taking time out during the presentation itself and at the end to answer any questions. So we'll try and get as many answered for you as possible. So that's pretty much all the start. All the main part was covered at the start. So what I'll do is hand over to our practice lead on Microsoft 365, Graham McLean, who will be leading the session this morning. Thank you very much for joining. We hope you enjoy.
Thanks, Zopash. So yeah, just good morning. Thanks for coming along to the session today. So hopefully everyone can see the slides that are up there. I'm going to be going through presentation today, just to cover some aspects of Microsoft 365, and also I'm going to be showing a few demos and things from different aspects of Microsoft 365 as well. So, just to kind of set the scene a little bit, everyone's using Microsoft 365 these days. Everyone's using it to a certain kind of level. They haven't maybe really thought about what else it can do, what else it could be doing for them in terms of productivity. So the idea of this session really was to expand out on the kind of the basic functionality and show you things that you could be doing with SharePoint and Teams and potentially Power Platform quickly and easily. So we'll focus on some things that are fairly easy to kind of set up and get going. And we'll touch on some things that are maybe a bit more advanced as well, but we'll talk about the different scenarios that they could be used. Okay, so by way of an agenda, I'm just going to take a few minutes just to introduce Bridgeall for those of you that haven't been to any of our events before and maybe don't know that much about us. And then I'm going to be talking about taking Microsoft 365 to the next level. So just new features and integrations available in Microsoft 365. Then I'm going to touch on lists. So I'm going to be talking about Microsoft lists and SharePoint lists. What's the kind of difference, what's possible with them. And then I'm going to be touching a wee bit on future. So what's coming up in the future in terms of Microsoft 365, and that'll be based really around a product which is brand new out, called Microsoft Viva. We're going into that in a bit more detail as well. And then I'll just finish off talking about strategy and governance and just how we can wrap all this up so that for an organisation where you can let people loose with some of these technologies, you can still kind of keep a bit of a rein on what they're doing with it and make sure that you understand what's out there and you're not having people just creating all sorts of things. So as Zopash mentioned earlier on, I've got one of my colleagues, Sammy, on the chat, so he's able to answer any of your questions. So if you have any questions at all on the way through, if you just put them into the chat, I want to try and make this a fairly interactive session. So if you post those questions on the chat as we go through, then Sammy will do his best to kind of answer them. We'll try and pause at various points and pick up some of the questions as well, and just see if we can have a wider discussion about them. Okay, so Bridgeall company based in Glasgow. We currently have 33 staff who were established in 2002. We're a Microsoft Gold partner and really focusing on the modern intelligent workplace, so Microsoft 365, SharePoint, Teams, and Power Platform. We offer managed services and support as well, so we take on support for quite a lot of products that have been built or operational support of your IT. Do quite a lot of Azure, cloud-based technology, and creation of new Azure resources and managing the Azure and cloud licensing. And we have a couple of products as well, Smart Crowds and Trevi, which you can check out. And we also do custom .NET development. We're a 9 times Microsoft Gold partner, and we are also ISO 9001 and 27001 accredited. And we're a Microsoft Content Services Group preferred partner, so we're one of 20 worldwide to hold that status. And what that really means for us in the Microsoft 365 team is that we have really good access to the Microsoft engineering team, and we get a kind of sneak preview, if you like, of things that are coming up. And we also get the ability to kind of shape the product a little bit by talking to the engineering team a few times a year, and be able to see what's coming up and how we would like to use the technology as well. So some of our customers here, you can see we've got a kind of wide selection of customers across private and public sector, across a number of different industry verticals, so manufacturing, housing, national government, NHS, utilities and events. And I'll touch on some of these customers when I touch on some of the aspects of what we're going to talk about today as well. Okay, so the first section then, taking Microsoft 365 to the next level. So when we talk about Microsoft 365, we mean the applications and the integrations that make up the kind of the online Office application suite that most people know as Office 365. So that's SharePoint, that's Teams, that's Powerapps, it's Power Automate. So I'm going to take you through a few examples of how you can use them to increase your business and to a certain extent your personal productivity as well. Okay, so first up is Teams templates. So Teams is Microsoft's collaboration space. So most people know it for live chat, for calling, documents all centered around here. Microsoft are investing heavily into this space, and there's new features rolling out all the time. Most people probably know Teams by joining an existing team and just collaborating with people within the team. But at the point of creation, you can actually use a number of predefined templates, and they can be tailored, or you can create new templates so you can use them within your organization. So there are actually a number of kind of predefined templates offered by Microsoft, and you see them on the slide there. So there's a selection of these, manage a project, manage an event, onboard employees, for example. So I've created a couple of these. I've got a manage a project template, and there's also a bank branch collaboration template. And I'll just show you some of the things that are possible in there as well. So hopefully you can see that on the screen here. We've got the project planning team here, and you can see that we've got a kind of general tab, we've got announcements tab, general announcements, planning and resources channels, and then within these we've got different tabs. So we've got a OneNote tab in here, and we've got a planner tab in here as well. And then you can see the bank branch one that's been created. So it has a lot more in terms of channels. It's got maybe about 12 or so channels in there, and just the different tabs. So the idea being here is that you can kind of create a bit of consistency around the teams that you create within your organization. You can use either these predefined templates to roll them out, and you'll know the channels, and you'll know the tabs, and you'll know the applications that people are making use of at any point. And you can kind of drive the direction of how people use Teams a little bit as well. So if I just jump into the Teams Admin Center, you can see from the Admin Center where you can manage the teams, you can see the team template section. And in here, you can see some of the templates that I've mentioned. So at the point where you go into Teams and hit new, you've got the option to kind of create a team using any of these templates. But one other thing that you can do is you can add your own one. So you can create a brand new template for your own purpose, or you could use an existing team as a template. So if you've already got a team and the structure of the channels and the applications and things that you've already got in there works quite well, then you can use that existing team as a template to build a new one, and that will be offered to all your users whenever they try and create a new team. Okay, so just moving on to talk about shifts. So shifts is available within Teams and is aligned to a team, and effectively it gives you a kind of lightweight ability to manage shift patterns and manage for managers to create shifts and for workers to be able to see their upcoming shifts and be able to swap shifts or be able to request time off or set their availability in terms of when they can work. So I'll show you a little bit of that just now as well. So just within here, we've got the shifts option. So this is the desktop view that you would see, and there's an associated mobile view for kind of frontline workers as well. You can put people into groups, and you've got a few people listed here. You can change the way that you view them, so you view people across the month, for example, and you can advance through the months or go back, and you can really just drop shifts in. So for the example I've got here is that I've given people a day off here, so if people had, say, a day off a week, you can quite easily copy that day off, and then paste that day off into here. And then select to share with the team, and then that will publish the schedule to everybody. So if people are looking at that with their mobile device, or if they're looking at that on the desktop device, then they're able to see the shifts that have been put out as well. The other thing you can do is create some open shifts at the top, so shifts that people maybe want to are up for people to take, and people can just come in and they can claim those shifts as well. On the request side, you can create new requests for, say, time off. So an employee could put a request in for time off, either holiday or parental leave or sick day, for example, and add a note. That request then comes to the manager and then can be accepted or declined. They can also swap their shift. So if they've got a shift that they want to swap with somebody else, then they can pick somebody else's shift and see if they can swap it with somebody else. Or if they've got a shift that they can't do, then they can offer up that shift to somebody else as well. Okay, the other thing other functionality that's available within here is the functionality to be able to clock in. So again, there's a kind of lightweight clocking in, clocking out type system that can be enabled from here as well. So if your employees are using mobile devices and they clock in, then you can enable that so that it knows the time that they've arrived, and also has optional location detection, so it can tell where they are when they clocked in and when they clocked out as well. Okay, so just moving on to talk a bit about Powerapps. So Powerapps is Microsoft's low-code application development platform, built on top of the Microsoft 365 stacks on top of Office 365. Applications can be built as standalone applications, or they can be integrated with Teams, SharePoint, Dynamics, CRM, and they can be both desktop and mobile enabled. They can make use of Power Automate, which is the workflow and the automation engine within Microsoft 365. And they can also make use of Dataverse, which is a common set of tables, really essentially a subset of Dynamics CRM tables. And what that lets you do is that lets you model any number of really business processes or business scenarios in a really simple way, because you already have the kind of tables and the relationships all set out. So collectively, those technologies are described as a Power Platform. I'm not going to go too deep into those today. If you're interested in knowing more about those technologies, you can have a look at one of our previous events, which focused on that. So on the slide there, you can see you can watch the recording on the YouTube channel of that event. And also we have a Power Platform product guide on our website, which you can obviously go and download if you're interested in finding out more about the Power Platform. So what I want to talk about today is I just want to talk about a couple of predefined applications that have been released by Microsoft recently, really focusing around Teams and the use of Powerapps and Dataverse within Teams. So these are kind of similar to Teams templates that we saw, but where the Teams templates just really focused on the channels and the applications that you can use within Teams. These are more kind of fully featured applications within Teams. So I'll show you an example of that just now. There are a few that have been released by Microsoft. So there's an inspections application, an issue reporting application, and a milestones application, and they're all freely available and free to download. We're going to take a look at the milestones application just now. So if we come back into Teams here, I've got the milestones application installed within this team in here. So what that gives us is it gives us a new tab, and that will go away and open up the Power Platform solution. So the idea being here is that within the team, we've got a bit of a kind of project management capability, if you like. So we can create new projects that we want to track. We can see the projects that we've got on the go. We can create some milestones, and we can track these milestones along the top. And then for each milestone, we can have a work item. So we've got a number of different work items based against each of these milestones, and they've got a status and a priority, and they can be assigned to one or more people, and they've got a target date as well. So you can see if we select one of these, then you can see all the fields that you're able to fill in. You can see the activity log, so you can see what's happened, the kind of history of the work item over time as well. And if we go to the settings up here, then you've got the ability to kind of configure this solution so that it works the way that you want it to work. So if we go in here and have a wee look, you can see that you can set the name of the project in here. You can add milestones, and you can create new milestones for your project. You can add team members into your project as well, and you can select categories that you want to be able to tag your work items with, and priorities you want to be able to tag your work items with as well. And you can select the status. So you can see that, all I've really done here is I've downloaded this free Powerapps template. I've got it installed. And what that's given is it's given me a pretty fully featured kind of project management tool. And then I can go into the settings, and I can kind of configure that further so that it works a wee bit better for my needs. So that's the kind of first level of customization, if you like, that you can do with this application. And that's probably where most people will stop. But the power behind these applications is that I can actually go into the information about the project, and I can say customize using Powerapps. So what that does is it will go and launch Powerapps within Teams. It takes a wee minute or two, so I've already launched a tab for that. So in here, what we get is we get the Powerapps design canvas, and in here you've got access to all the screens that make up the application, and you've got access to all the data sources that make up the application. So if you had external systems that you wanted to pull information in from, or you needed a new screen because it didn't quite work for you, then from here you can quite easily go in and modify the screens, add new buttons, add new sections to the screen, change the colors around, change the branding around, change the data sources to pull in information from your existing systems, or to write information out to existing systems, and really modify this application so that it fits for your own needs. So you can see how that's quite a powerful and compelling kind of application right within Teams, where most people are working day to day. Okay, the next section I just want to talk about is Power Virtual Agents. So, most people know bots or customer service type bots. Most people have been to a website where you think you're interacting with a human, but you're actually interacting with a bot, which takes you so far down the kind of customer service process before either answering your question or handing off to a human being. You can do the same type of thing within Teams, and also surface this on websites and your intranet and other areas within Office 365 as well. So the idea is that it's very much a rules-based chat within Teams, so can help provide information for users in a kind of standard way. So, do you want to know how to put expenses in? Do you want to know where the HR policies live, for example? You can quite easily and simply build a bot that will do that. So we've got an example that we're going to show. You can see on the slide there, you can see the way that these are built up. It's very kind of graphical, connecting a question to certain conditions and then branching that off. So I'll show you the example that we've got here. So Sammy, actually, who's doing a good job answering all your questions on the chat, he actually built this within about half an hour or an hour. Just put together some kind of simple topics. So we get a question, what can I help with? What can I help you with today? So if I say, can you tell me about expenses? Then it will go away and it will come back and say, so if you'd like to claim expenses, make sure you're registered with Xero. Do you have a login with Xero? And at that point, I can either say no, or I can just type no. And then that will say, please speak to Julianne or Denise, who are our office admin staff, to get you registered. Now, this is a fairly simple one, but it could be extended so that, instead of coming back to say, please go and speak to our admin staff, it could pop up a card that says, can you please fill out these details? And then it could go away and call the API for Xero and actually register you and set you up with a new account. So, you've got fairly simple kind of agents that just rules-based kind of answer questions. And then over time, as people use this, you can understand there's analytics behind this, so you can understand what parts of the bot are being most interacted with, and then you can pick, right, okay, Xero comes up quite often, so let's spend a bit of time on the Xero aspect of that, and just make sure that we can register people so that there's no need to actually speak to anybody about it. We can just do that process end to end. So you can see from an HR point of view, from an employee onboarding point of view, it's quite good. So we'll say, yeah, that answered our question. Thanks very much. and then we get to rate our experience as well. So it's relatively good experience. We'll give it a 4. So can I help with anything else? We can say yes. And then we can say, I want to know about Bridgeall managers, for example. And it'll come back, and because it doesn't quite understand what we mean there, it gives us some options. So I know of things that kind of look like Bridgeall managers. So what one were you thinking about? So you can say Bridgeall managers there, and then it just gives you some information about who are the managing directors, who's the management team, and points you in the direction of our website. And again, you just rate it and then say, well, thanks. And that's the end of the kind of experience. So you can see it's a pretty powerful way to be able to get quite a lot of topics answered. And yeah, just see a question in the chat there about, can you point the chatbot to display relevant documents? So you can get it to pick up on documents. You can get it to pull in links. You can get it to pull in all sorts of relevant content. So you could have people asking a question, and then you basically answer that by saying, oh, go and have a look at this document, or go and have a look at this site. So you can quite easily and quickly tailor those experiences. Okay. Next up, I just want to touch on SharePoint Syntax. Now, some of you may have heard about SharePoint Syntax. It is relatively new. It's relatively new functionality within SharePoint within the last kind of few months. It builds on top of AI functionality that was available elsewhere within the Microsoft 365 platform. And really the idea behind this is that it helps make your organization more productive by taking a number of similar types of documents, so say invoices, statements of work, purchase orders, and running these through a model to be able to kind of train them and to help them understand the content. So once that's been done, the content can be extracted by SharePoint, and the document along with the content is placed within the document library. So again, I'll show you an example of that. Just here. So here we've got a number of invoices, and if we select one of these invoices, we can see that we've got an invoice number, we've got a due date, we've got a balance due, we've got a number of key parts of information that we really want to kind of extract from this invoice. So what we've done is we have created a document library, and we've told it that we're going to put the invoices in here. And then we have trained the model, which sounds quite difficult to do, but in reality, all you're doing is giving it telling it the data fields that you want to extract out of the invoice, and then throwing a few invoices at it, and it will actually come back and say, right, I think these are all the right fields, and then you decide whether they are the right fields. That's effectively training the model. So once the model's been trained with a selection of invoices, you can then start to drop new invoices into this document library, and you can see here what it's done is it's picked up a particular content type, but it's been able to extract data out. So we've got the due date of the invoice that was on the document. We've got the total from the invoice. We've got the invoice number. We've got the bill to, and we've got the contact there as well. So why this is really quite useful is that what we can start to do is we can start to build an automation scenario where all the invoices get dropped into here, but the contact email, then what we do is we create a workflow using Power Automate to say when a new item arrives in here, then email the contact and say that a new invoice has arrived. and give them the due date and give them the total and give them a wee bit of background about where the invoice came from. And then you can actually use the built-in approvals functionality to get somebody to just approve that invoice when it comes in. So, we can attach the invoice, or we can just attach all the detail. If that's enough information, then somebody can just hit approve if they know what it's for, or they can say, it's an exception and somebody has to go and manually look at it. But you can see how if you received a lot of invoices, you could quite quickly get through that. That's a good kind of automation scenario. So there's obviously a number of different uses for that. It will depend on the use case that you have within your business, things that you might want to split out. For example, in the housing sector, for example, you might want to split out the tenant, you may want to split out like tenancy ref and things like that from documents that are there, and be able to split that information out so that you can store it better. You understand whereabouts to store it within SharePoint. The other thing you can also do, and I'll touch on this a wee bit later, is you can actually associate attention labels with these as well. So if it comes in and you've split all the information out, you're able to say, well, I know it's an invoice now, and I know that we keep invoices for 3 years. So I'll put a 3-year retention label onto the end of it. And no users had to touch that document at all. It's just all been done automatically by the model.
I was going to ask a quick question. It was, see, in regards to syntax, if it is new to quite a lot of people, how would you go about getting that?
So the syntax it's available as a separate, what they call SKU, so a separate kind of license, if you like, on top of Office 365. It is available, so within your, depending on how you buy your licenses for Office 365. Whether that's through a partner or whether you do that yourself, you can either jump into the admin part of Office 365 and enable SharePoint Syntax, or you can speak to your partner about getting a license for that as well. And obviously, if you don't have either, then we'd be happy to help you to have a look at it as well. You can, I believe, get a trial for it, so you can get a trial code that'll let you have a look at it at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
For 30 days or so. Okay, so just moving on to having a look at Microsoft Lists. So we're just going to run through the kind of background to why would you use lists? Why do they make sense instead of documents or instead of Excel spreadsheets? Then we're going to talk about the list templates and what you can do with some of the templated lists, and then finish off by talking about some of the list formatting as well. So how can you format those lists in a better way and make them look a bit nicer? So first of all, by way of background, so lists are great. They're kind of a bit of a hidden feature of SharePoint, but a bit of an underused feature, I would say, within SharePoint. Typically, when we're working with organisations, they always come up because people say, "Oh, I've got a SharePoint tracker, so I track items or I track things that I need to do, and I've just got that in an Excel spreadsheet." And usually they're pretty precious about the Excel spreadsheet, and not too keen about moving that to a SharePoint list until they understand the benefits of it. So, lists can be filtered by any of the columns that they contain. So really, you would set a list up in the same way as an Excel spreadsheet. So it's got a number of columns, and then each item in the list is like an item in your Excel spreadsheet. They can be filtered by any of the columns that you've got, but the good thing is that they can have multiple views. So you can have a user that comes into the list and they see, cases within the last 24 hours, or active cases that they've got on the go, active cases that are assigned to them. The good thing is that the view can be defined by different columns. So each view can show different columns in the list, and each view can also show like different conditions as well. So it can show all the items that I would have, for example, assigned to me, but if another person goes in, it shows all the items assigned to them. So you can do quite a lot with just the views and the columns. Lists can also have unique permissions. So you can do things like only the creator of the item can see the item, or everyone can see all items, or only the creator can edit the item. So for certain scenarios, you might want to just be able to see items that you've created and not be able to see items that other people have created in the list. You can set them up in that way. They also have really good options for workflow. So you can say when a new item is created or when a new item is updated, you can do something. So you can then use Power Automate to kind of kick off a workflow and get it to kind of carry on a business process that you were possibly doing anyway with your tracker sheet. The other thing is they can be used as a data source for Power BI. So if you have a list, you can use that as a data source for Power BI, and as that list changes, then the Power BI data source is automatically getting updated as well. The other thing is that each row item can be versioned so that each specific item within the list has a history of its own changes, and you can roll those changes back if you want to as well. And lastly, which we're going to go on and see, is that you can apply kind of conditional formatting and then list formatting to them as well. Okay, so lists can be created from within Teams or from within SharePoint. From within Teams, you can select Add Tab within the team and then add the Lists application. And then from here, you can select one of the templates, or you can create a new list, or you can create a list from Excel or from an existing list that you have as well. I'm just going to show you one that we've created. So this is the event itinerary list type, and you can see that it's got a number of predefined columns. And also here you can see that it's got a number of predefined views as well, so by session type or list view or grid view. Another couple of interesting things to show you just while I'm in here is that within each of the line items, so within each of the items in the list, you can also now comment on items. So if you had, say, a case list or an issue list, you can kind of start a chat around each of these items as well. And just to show you the version history in here, so if we've got an item in here and we go to version history, you can see that we've got 3 different versions in here, and you can see the items that have been added. So they were set up with the title, the location, start, date, and end time. And then on this date time, the title and the location were changed. And then the location and the start time were changed as well. And I can go into one of these options here and I can restore back the option. So only administrators or only owners of the list can do this. So everyone can see the version history, but only owners can kind of roll that back. So you've got security around the lists as well. Okay, moving on to the column formatting then. So you can customize the formatting of columns within Microsoft Lists. So we've got some examples shown there on the slide. So for example, this category, one that you can see on the screen, would just have been a simple kind of drop-down list of categories, but we've been able to transfer, make the column into what they call kind of pill type buttons with an icon and a color associated with them. So just makes it more interactive in terms of working with the list. This one here in the screenshot, you can see it's just a simple column of status, but when you hover over that, you can actually pull out the details of what's happened, all the way through until it gets to that status. This one here, you can see showing a kind of graphical image of the schedule that's available there, and you can see the icons there for the pass as well. So again, we've got an example here in the issue tracker. So you can see that we've used the conditional formatting here to kind of highlight it as green. We've kind of changed this button up a little bit, so it's got a picture of the person who created it, and we've changed some of these buttons around as well. So that can be done through, if you're within a list and you select the views, then right down at the bottom you'll see Format Current View, and then you've got a couple of options in here. So you've got the ability to change the layout of the list between a list and a gallery, and then you can add some conditional formatting. So, you know, from a kind of Office 365 led point of view, if you like, you can go in here and you can quite easily change a couple of things, and it will take you through a kind of wizard to be able to change them. So selecting conditional formatting will take you to a wizard that says, right, what do you want to base your conditional formatting on? What are your colours? What's the condition? Alternating row styles will just let you select the different styles as well. So that applies to the whole list there. And then format columns just lets you select a column, and depending on the column type, it will depend on the type of thing that you can do. So it'll let you either pick a colour here, it'll let you pick what they call a pill, so these types of buttons are here, or it'll let you apply conditional formatting just to that column on the list. You'll see if I go back and pick title, for example, all I can do is conditional formatting, because it's clever enough to know that status is a kind of drop-down list. So there's a defined set of values for that list. Okay, and then finally was the list formatting example. So here we're talking about transforming the whole list to make it look less like a list and more like something that's a bit more interactive. So examples that we've got here are a contact card. So, you know, these are just a bog standard entry in a list, but what we've done is been able to apply some formatting to these to get the picture to come out, to get them to go across a few lines, to pick up some information, to display a map of the person's location, and then display some notes for the person as well. We've then at the bottom on the left hand side, we've got a chat option. So again, each of these is just an item in a list, but we are showing them as though they appear in a kind of a chat type function. And then on the right hand side, we've got a kind of tick list, so a kind of you know, progress through a wizard type stage where there's 6 boxes. Again, each of these is an item in a list. They've got a completed status, and once it's completed, then you get a tick with the date. But the idea would be that you work through these 6 items to kind of onboard your employee. And then the final one on the right hand side is bottom right hand side is the shipping information. So being able to kind of hover over this panel that contains some information, again, just an item in the list, but then being able to see the kind of tracking details for that as well. So being able to kind of delve a wee bit deeper into the information that's contained within the list. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about, you know, how this is done, apart from just saying that it's available to do from the format view, which I showed you there, but by selecting the advanced options, you can then start to, you know, build experiences like this. You do need to have, you know, you do need to be a bit more proficient in kind of JavaScript and JSON in terms of kind of programming to be able to do that. But the option is available to you. So if you have somebody within your organisation that can do that, then, you know, these are things that are open to you and the experiences that you can go and build. And there's some really good samples out there on the internet. But obviously, you can equally, you know, come to a partner such as ourselves, and we can help you with that as well. Okay, just having a quick look to see if there's any. I think Sammy's been doing a good job answering the questions. I don't think there's any kind of outstanding questions there. So I'll move on to the Microsoft 365 future. So Microsoft recently announced a product called Microsoft Viva. and it was announced, I think, last week or a couple of weeks ago on Thursday. Viva really is a whole new set of experiences which are based in Microsoft Teams, and the idea is that they will help employees feel more engaged, more empowered within their organisation. There's 4 separate parts to Viva, and I'm going to go into them in a wee bit more detail for each of the sections. But really, you can think about them as a kind of employee engagement type platform that sits within Teams that offers a number of different functionalities for each of the pieces. So first up, we've got Microsoft Viva Connections. So Viva Connections is your kind of gateway to your organizational news and the tasks that you have to do. So it's a kind of a mix between a corporate intranet within Teams and your tasks. So I know the graphic here isn't particularly large, but within Teams on the left hand, so this large one here, the kind of desktop version, shows you within Teams. And really what we've got is some kind of corporate news here with in the centre of the slide, with some kind of company news underneath. And on the right hand side, what we've got is a dashboard, and you can see that a wee bit better on the mobile experience view on the left here. And that dashboard is really showing you things that you need to do. So, you know, what tasks have you got to do for that day, or what things should you read in terms of some of that news to get yourself up to speed with what's been happening. So that's Connections, and it's really a kind of hybrid between a SharePoint intranet and a kind of news section, if you like. But the idea being that if you're working in Teams, then you're able to, from within Teams, be able to see everything that's going on within the organisation and keep up to date with what you need to know. Okay, the next module is Viva Insights. So Insights gives individuals, managers and leaders personalised and actionable insights to help everyone in an organisation. So there's new productivity and wellbeing experiences that are coming through within Microsoft Teams, and that is going to pull all these together into that Microsoft Viva Insights brand. So in terms of the insights here, there's both personal insights and there's kind of workplace analytics. So the personal insights are visible only to the individual. So, you know, your manager can't see your personal insights, they're only available to you. And in terms of the manager's view of their team, for example, all that is kind of anonymized and it's aggregated, so it's not personally identifiable. So on the left-hand side, we've got the Insights section. So you can see, you know, you want to kind of plan your focus time. So for people who maybe you've started receiving them already, the kind of Cortana-based, you know, daily briefings, which say, you know, you have so many meetings today, here's how to get organised, do you want to build in some focus time? It's really pulling some of these stats through into Teams and helping you kind of organise this. So you can plan your focus time in here. You've got, you know, mentoring, and you can look at how you do your one-to-ones and manage your kind of communication with your manager in here. You've got some training, you know, personal training that you want to take that's built in here as well. Virtual commute, which is not available just now, but which will be coming later, and that actually will be within Teams as well. So the ability to kind of use the to-do function to say, right, how do we close out your tasks for the day? So what have you got left to do before you leave? You know, close out tasks or move tasks out to tomorrow if you want to take a kind of period of reflection, and then maybe take one of the kind of heads. So they've partnered with Headspace, it's for looking at the kind of mental welfare side, and looking at a bit of kind of meditation so that you can end your day. So the idea being that you would carry out those few activities in place of your kind of commute, where you normally go on the train or the bus or whatever to go home, and that would be the end to your day. So you kind of finish off each day and then start each day with, you know, what you need to do. On the right hand side, you can see some of the visuals there. So some of, you know, just again bringing out some of the Cortana aspects of your first meeting starts at 8 o'clock. You've got 4 meetings. You need to RSVP to these meetings. Where are they going to be? So they're going to be through Microsoft Teams, or they're going to be, you know, physical meetings, which is a bit of a thing of the past at the moment, but hopefully they'll come back again soon. And then in the main graphic there, just down on the bottom right hand side, you can see the kind of manager type view. So they're able to get some analytics on, you know, how are my team working together? So how engaged are they as a team? You know, what are some of the things that I can do to help them be more engaged, to remove some blockers, to just be able to help them work a bit better as a team. So we've got a couple of questions in there. Just so, are additional SKUs required for Viva? Yes, so again, there are additional SKUs. Some of this is not, I should point out that some of this is not brand new. So some of this is new, and the fact that it's all kind of brought into Teams, that part is new. But some of the kind of Cortana, you know, how is your day, and the Teams kind of virtual commute stuff, that will come through in your normal SKU for Office 365. But if you want the whole kind of Viva experience, then that does come as an additional SKU. So there will be trials of that available, and SKUs for that will become available soon. See another question here about how would you access the partnership with Headspace. So that's kind of tied into the Viva SKU, if you like. So if you've got Microsoft Viva, then you've already got that kind of Headspace partnership. It comes with the Viva platform. Then moving on to Viva Learning. So Viva Learning brings together courses and content from multiple different platforms into one location within Teams. So the top left view that I've got here on the slide shows your view in Teams. And in here you can see, you know, some of the small tags in here, but we've got learning that's come from LinkedIn that you need to do. We've got learning that comes from just a PowerPoint presentation from within a particular project, so within SharePoint. So you can surface some of this information to say, you know, I always want my employees to, you know, carry out this, to view this PowerPoint, to go and look at this learning, and that's kind of merged in with their personal learning as well. So if they pick up on you know, videos and topics that they want to learn, then that all kind of merges in together into their learning experience. Courses come from a variety of different places. So say we've got LinkedIn, which I mentioned, we've got SharePoint. You can see you've got Microsoft Learn there as well, down at the bottom. There's also Pluralsight is there as well, and so is edX and Coursera. So they are the partners that have been announced at launch, and they are the partners that, you know, will be there from day one, if you like, on Viva Learning. The idea behind this is to try and make this a kind of open platform. So Microsoft will be opening this up to other course providers, to be able to kind of, you know, put your own course content into there as well. And it will be open for organizations to be able to push their content into there as well. So if you already have a learning platform that's not one of the ones that I've mentioned, then the chances are that in future there will be some kind of tie-up between the two. And then down on the bottom right-hand side here, apologies, slide. So where it says SOAR Learning, what we've got here is really, if you can imagine this screenshot from within a particular team. So this is a team that I may have joined. I'm brand new to the team. And what we can do is we can pick some learning experiences that say, you're new to the team, we need to onboard you and get you up to speed with what you need to do. So here is some training that we think you need to do to be able to understand the project. So we've got a mix of things coming from internal, so PowerPoint presentations or Word documents that you need to read, things that you need to have a look at, LinkedIn training that you need to do, kind of Coursera or edX type topics that you need to have a look at as well. So the idea being that for Microsoft, for Viva Learning, it's kind of organizational type learning at the top left, and then project type learning at the bottom right within Teams. Okay, and then moving on to the last of the Viva experiences, and this one really is about building and retaining that organizational knowledge across the entire organization. That as people kind of join and leave the organization, we've all joined organizations, work in organizations where people use acronyms all the time for certain things. People talk about projects and they always talk about them as though everybody knows what they are. And when new people come on board, it's not really clear to them about what these acronyms are, what these projects are, how do they get up to speed, how do they understand them. So what Viva Topics does is it helps through the creation of what we call topic cards. So topic cards are on the left-hand side, the top here. And what they are is really an authoritative source which says this defines the project, which is important to the organisation, and tells you a bit about the project. And it also tells you, it links to authoritative documents about that project, and also links to people who were involved with that project as well. So the idea being that you've got topic cards that kind of talk about certain acronyms or projects that are important to the organisation. And how they are surfaced is on the bottom right here, within Teams. Somebody, you can just kind of see that in the conversation. Somebody said, when I worked on Project SOAR. And then Teams and Office 365 has been clever enough to go, right, SOAR, I recognise that, so I've underlined it and I've kind of highlighted it. And if somebody mouses over or hovers over SOAR, then this topic, this kind of smaller topic card will pop up. And what it'll do is it'll tell you, right, it's a project. And here where it's kind of alternate names, this is some of the description about the project. This is people that worked on the project. And here's some resources for the project as well. And if you select that view details, then what that'll do is that'll take you to the full topic card where you can better understand what this project is. And as I say, that can either be a project or it can be an acronym that's used within your organisation as well. Okay, so a couple of another question there. So would you need to have accounts with the various learning providers, or some of the content included in the Viva license? So I think some of the content is included, but I would imagine that for things like Pluralsight, you probably need to have a Pluralsight subscription to be able to enable the Pluralsight content to come through onto that. Okay, and kind of last section is really talking about Microsoft 365 strategy and governance. So far, hopefully we've seen lots of kind of different interesting ways to kind of extend and build on top of the Microsoft 365 platform. And that's all well and good for a kind of individual point of view. We can go and create lots of things, but for people who work in IT and for people whose job it is to kind of keep control of this environment, that sounds like a bit of a nightmare. So, what we're going to have a look at now is ways that you can kind of just maintain a bit more organizational control of the platform while letting users do what they need to do to keep them productive, to not hold them up, but be able to kind of retain that that knowledge and that control behind the scenes. So first of all, we're going to have a look at controlling Teams and SharePoint creation. So, if you don't have any controls in your organisation at all, then anyone that has a Teams license can go and say new team. And before long, you'll have lots and lots of teams, and you won't really understand why they're all there and what information is within them. So it's really a good idea to try and create a process and try and manage that kind of creation process for new SharePoint sites and for new team sites. And the ways that you can do that are really restricting the creation of them down to a specific account that runs the process. We've done this for a number of customers like Forest Research and Link and quite a few others as well. And really the best way to do this is to use the existing tools that are there for you in Office 365. So using tools such as Microsoft Forms, Teams itself, maybe Power Virtual Agents, maybe a bit of Power Automate. The idea being that what you do is you say, right, you want a new team or you want a new SharePoint site. So come here and fill in this form. Give us the name of the SharePoint site or the name of the team. Get a bit of business justification about, why do you need this? What that lets you do is that lets people fill in the form and then submit that to you, and there can be a business process that runs that maybe goes for approval or just goes through to create the team. You can control the naming at that point, so you can do things like you can control the name of the team, so that the name of the team has the department within the team, so that when you're looking at it from a Teams admin point of view, you understand what department those teams have been created for. You can create consistency, so you can control the template that gets created. So the templates that we talked about, you could either offer them a whole set of templates, or you could just say, right, okay, you want a team for your business. This is the team that you get, and then you know what's being created at the point as well. You've also then got that information about all the teams that are created. You've got the business justification. You know what's going on in that team, and you're then able to kind of go back and revisit that from the point of view of tidying that up afterwards as well. So you might want to look at our kind of retention policy for Teams and SharePoint, where you say you can create a team, you get it for a year. After 11 months, we send you an email to the owner of the team to say, are you still using this? And if they are, then it gets extended. If they're not, then it gets put into a read-only view until somebody comes back to claim it. And then there's maybe a process that runs after that, to get rid of the team. So there's lots of different things that you can do. And as I say, we've worked with lots of different customers to have lots of different types of processes to manage this. But the idea of kind of managing and controlling the creation of teams and the creation of SharePoint is a good thing to be thinking about. Is a good thing to be doing. Okay, retention. So here talking about really retention labels within Microsoft 365. So these are labels that can be applied to content that let you, based on a number of triggers, so like date created, date modified, or date labeled, say, I want to keep this content for 3 years, or I want to be able to keep this content for 5 years. And that allows you to do a number of things. It allows users at the point where they drop the content into Teams or where they drop the content into SharePoint to be able to say, I know at the point where I drop this in, that this is an invoice, and we keep invoices for 3 years. So I'm able to tag it for 3 years, and then I don't need to think about it again, because I know that at the end of that 3-year period, that invoice will now just disappear. Microsoft 365 platform is just going to take care of that, end of life of that document, if you like. So I'm not having to go back after 3 years and say, right, what do I need to get rid of? So this is particularly pertinent in organisations where you've got scenarios that to manage kind of freedom of information, subject access requests, and just generally manage your information so that you're not adding to that kind of base of information all the time. The admin, once information has been labelled, the admin is then able to go and kind of get a view, such as the one shown on screen, to be able to see the kind of activity of all the labels over time. So see what are the most commonly used labels, where's that information stored, and start to build up a bit of a picture about the information that you've got within the organisation as well. Okay, and then there's a similar side to it with sensitivity labelling. So again, Microsoft 365 offers sensitivity labelling across the majority of the applications within the stack. Labels can be applied to Teams, to SharePoint documents, to Power BI reports, to SharePoint sites as well. And labels can have conditions attached, and you can build rules so that, say, things like documents that have been tagged with a sensitive label can't be emailed outside of the organisation, for example, or they can't be moved onto USB storage, or a sensitive document can't be viewed via screen sharing on a Teams call. So if I'm having a Teams call with an external party and I've got a sensitive document and I try and drag that onto the screen, then all the viewer will see is just a black screen. They wouldn't see the sensitive document at all. Or if I try and drag that document onto USB storage, it's going to come up with a message that says your organisation doesn't allow this action to happen. And they can then, these labels can be viewed by the admin. So the view that you see there is the kind of admin view of all the sensitivity labels and all the activity that's happened. You can also kind of layer them up with what we call conditional access policies. So that gives you the ability to say, right, if I've got a sensitive document, then I only want documents that are tagged sensitive to be able to be seen by people who are using an official work device, and also they need to be in an approved office location. So even if they're using an approved work device and they're in, say, Costa or something like that, they wouldn't be able to pull a sensitive document up onto the screen. They would need to be in the office to be able to view that. So you can kind of layer all these different conditions together. So the labels are the kind of basic building blocks of that, the sensitivity labels. And then on top of that, you can build data loss prevention rules and conditional access policies that then further kind of limit or extend the conditions of what you can do with that data. Okay, so just to finish off, really the strategy piece, we're talking about being able to build a kind of a governance, and it's good to have a governance around your use of SharePoint Teams and the wider Office 365 services. So how do users access them? What does the kind of end of life of a team or a SharePoint site look like? How do we maintain the kind of the cycle of them? It's good to have a secure design and some principles around how SharePoint and Teams can work, and have an idea of your rollout, how you're going to use them as well. It's good to have a think about your SharePoint, your Teams operating model. So, who manages certain things? So does your help desk team deal with the requests for new SharePoint sites and Team sites? What happens if somebody wants a new Powerapp built, or somebody wants a Power Automate flow? Do the help desk team deal with that as well, or do you have somebody separate that can deal with that? And then document management, how's that set up? Your retention policies, your sensitivity policies, and upskilling your existing staff to understand a bit of that. So, this is an area that we work with quite a lot of customers in, either building a governance plan for them or looking at their kind of secure design, their operating model, helping them understand how they would roll that out, how they put some governance in place, particularly around Powerapps and Power Automate is a kind of hot topic just now. If everyone can go on when they've got a license and create a Powerapp, then how do we stop Powerapps being all over the organisation? How do we limit that? Fortunately, there's quite a lot of controls that you can put in, but really what you need to do is, as an organisation, just think about how that's managed. And as I say, that's something that we're helping a lot of customers with. If that's something that you're interested in, then by all means, make contact and we can help you out with it. We can have a discussion about how we can help you. Okay, so that's kind of the end of the session. Just want to really look at the questions on the chat and see if there's anything come up that Sammy hasn't been able to.
I think there was a question from Martin asking regarding Viva. We supply leadership resources and content. So if I understand this correctly, we could potentially integrate this with Viva for external customers.
So you will be able to in the future. Yeah, as I say, it's quite new just now, and they've only announced those kind of 3-4 partners. We don't have visibility yet of what that kind of like API will look like, if you like, in terms of being able to, you know, inject your content or put your content into other customers' platforms. We do know that it is coming though, because Microsoft have been quite clear that they want this to be an open platform and they want other providers to be able to kind of plug into this. But the detail around that, as with all new things from Microsoft, you know, the detail around some of that is quite vague just now. So I think that's probably one for you to keep an eye on just now. And there is if you go to Microsoft.com, I think /Viva, or /Microsoft Viva, then that's the kind of entry point for everything Viva just now. And you can have a look at that and understand some of the Viva Learning aspects of that in more detail.
Yeah, no, I think Sammy's done a great job at answering most of the questions. I think one last one there was, I think from Jamie, had a question on Viva pricing as well. I don't know if you know that off the top of your head, the pricing for Viva.
Okay, so I don't know the pricing at the moment. I do know it's going to be kind of separate SKUs, but I'm not quite sure what the pricing is going to be at the moment.
Okay.
So only announced a couple of weeks ago and kind of fitted into this presentation. And like all things Microsoft, they kind of get the functionality first and get out there, and then have a think about how we're going to be able to kind of charge customers and, you know, get trial codes and what would the pricing be and everything. So they will know that pricing information. They have told us that they do have pricing information, but typically from a commercial point of view, they hold that back until, you know, a wee while after we've announced it. And it's only really when it goes live then we're able to understand the pricing a bit better. Okay,
great. I think we'll probably wrap up there. Thank you so much for everybody who's answered put some questions in the chat, and we hope you got the answers that you were looking for. Just very quickly, a quick note that we'll be sending out a follow-up with the slides and the recording, so you can watch it later on, or if you want to catch up or anything like that, you can do. Also, we know what it's like. Sometimes, you know, you don't think of the questions at the time, so if you think of anything later on and you want to ping us an email or anything like that, we'd be more than happy to answer any questions for you. So yeah, we hope you found this session helpful, and thank you very much, Graham, and thank you everybody for joining us.
Great.